You know, when I turned 65, I didn't expect anything big to happen. Major chapters of my life, raising kids, building a career, chasing goals, were already behind me. Retirement, it settled in like an old sweater. Familiar, quiet, maybe a little worn. The house was quieter than I remembered, the phone didn't ring as often, and the calendar had fewer appointments that actually mattered. Most mornings looked the same. I'd wake up, shuffle into the kitchen, make myself a cup of coffee, black, 2 sugars, then sit by the window, watching the sun come up over the same trees I'd seen for 20 years. Life was still, but if I'm honest, there was an ache in the stillness. Not pain, just an emptiness. I couldn't quite explain. And I thought, well, this is it. This is what life looks like after 65. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't alive either. But then, one morning, not unlike the others, something strange happened. Something small, really, but it felt different. Like the air shifted, just slightly. Like the universe had leaned in and whispered something, only I could hear. Oh. And now, I know that might sound dramatic. I'm not someone who usually talks about the universe or fate or signs. I used to think those things were for younger people trying to find their path. But here I was, decades later, feeling like something, I didn't know what, was trying to get my attention. Have you ever had a moment like that? A second that didn't seem like much, but for some reason, stay with you. A dream you couldn't shake, a song playing at just the right time, or someone saying something that felt meant for you? That morning, I didn't just drink my coffee. I sat longer. I noticed the way the light came through the curtains, softer than usual. I felt a kind of stirring inside me, quiet but persistent. And that's when it started. Not with a bang, not with a sign in the sky, but with a whisper in the ordinary. A message I couldn't quite name yet, but one I couldn't ignore either. What followed from that moment changed the way I saw everything. My past, my purpose, and the years I still had left. Stick with me, because I want to tell you exactly what that message was, how I followed it, and what happened when I finally said yes to something I didn't even know I was looking for. It was an ordinary Tuesday afternoon. I remember that clearly because the sky had that soft, gray hue, the kind that makes you want to slow down and just feel. I was out for a walk, nothing planned, just trying to clear my mind a bit. As I passed by a little coffee shop on the corner, one I'd probably walked by 100 times without noticing, something stopped me. A song was playing inside, not just any song. It was her song, the one she used to hum while doing the dishes, the one we danced to in our kitchen on cold nights when the world outside felt too big. I froze for a second. I couldn't move. My heart did that strange little leap. You know the kind, when something deep inside you stirs without warning. I kept walking, quietly shaken, and found myself wandering into a small used bookstore a few blocks down. I picked up an old novel, one she used to love, and when I opened it, a postcard slipped out. On the front was a picture of a sunset over the ocean. And on the back, just 5 words, scribbled in fading ink. It's never too late. Quote. I know what you're thinking. Coincidence, right? Just random little moments, no big deal. But I'm telling you, Dash, it didn't feel random. It felt personal. Dash, like a message meant just for me. And I'm not the only one who's felt something like this. There's a man I once met, George, 68 years old, from Wisconsin. After his wife passed, he said a white dove came to perch on his windowsill every morning. Same time, same spot. Dash, 333 days in a row. He hasn't seen one in years. On the 3rd day, he said, I felt like she was telling me to get up. They whispered to the parts of you that still hope, still wonder if the people we love ever truly leave us. So I want to ask you, have you ever felt something like that? Something that made you stop and say, wait a minute, that can't just be chance. Because sometimes the first sign doesn't shout, it whispers. And if you're quiet enough and open enough, you just might hear it. After that strange morning, the song, the postcard, I couldn't quite shake the feeling that something bigger was at play. I mean, I'm not the kind of person who sees magic in every shadow or sign in every cloud. But this time, it felt different. It felt personal. And for the first time in a long while, I started asking myself a question I hadn't dared to ask in years. Is the universe trying to tell me something? I'll be honest, it left me a little rattled. Not in a bad way, but in a way that makes you sit down and really think. What if that song, that message, wasn't just coincidence? What if I was being nudged, gently but clearly, towards something I'd long forgotten? You see, up until then, I had been living by habit. Wake up, coffee, TV, a walk, maybe a phone call, dinner, bed, repeat, I didn't feel sad, but I didn't feel alive either. That next morning, I did something different. I pulled out an old notebook from the drawer and started writing. Nothing fancy, just a few lines about what I felt, what I remembered, what I missed. And something surprising happened. Words started flowing out. Things I haven't thought about in years. Dreams I'd put on the shelf because life got busy. Hobbies I used to love, but convinced myself I was too old for. Regrets I had buried under decades of responsibility. One morning turned into 2, then into a week. That little notebook became a mirror. It didn't show me what I was. It showed me what I had forgotten. I started remembering the version of me that used to paint, write short stories, and dance in the living room just because the right song came on, _. And I realized that person didn't disappear. Dash. He was just waiting. Beatly. Dash. Patiently. It reminded me of a woman I met in a local book club. Dash. Linda, 70 years old, full of laughter and grace. She once told me about a vivid dream she had of her late mother sitting beside her and whispering, "Don't waste the time you still have." The next day, Linda bought a set of brushes and started painting again. For the first time since she was 20. And now, she paints almost every morning by the window, just like she used to, back when the world still felt brand new. Sometimes it doesn't take a big event to wake us up. Sometimes it's a quiet whisper or a forgotten feeling that stirs something deep inside. And if we're willing to listen, to really listen, it can change everything. So I kept writing, kept feeling, Anders, and slowly, a tiny flame inside me began to glow again. Not a fire, not yet, but a spark. And that was enough to start. You know, for a while, I kept brushing those moments off. The song, the postcard, the strange little coincidences. I told myself, you're just being sentimental. But deep down, something had shifted. One morning, I sat at the kitchen table, staring at my cold cup of coffee. The house felt too quiet, not in a peaceful way, but in that echoing kind of silence that almost hurts. And I remember thinking, what if this feeling is trying to tell me something? What if I stopped ignoring it? So I did something small. Something that, honestly, felt a little ridiculous at first. I signed up for a gentle yoga class at the community center, one specific for older adults. I had no yoga mat, no stretchy pants, dash, and absolutely no idea what I was doing, dash. And to be honest, I almost didn't show up. That little voice in my head kept whispering, you're too old for this. It's too late to start something new. But I went anyway. And that's where I met Tom. He was 67,000, a little stiff in the knees, like me, and just as sure about what he was doing there. We laughed through half the class, struggling to balance, both of us more wobbly than graceful. But afterward, over a cup of tea the instructor offered, we got to talking. Turned out, Tom had lost his wife 2 years ago. He said he'd been feeling stuck, just floating through the days. I didn't come here for yoga, he admitted. I came here because I was tired of feeling alone. That hit me, because that's exactly how I felt too. That small decision to walk into a room full of strangers and stretch my tired muscles became a turning point. Not because yoga changed my life, but because it reminded me that connection is still possible, that life still has little corners of joy waiting to be rediscovered. The truth is, it's not about yoga, God. It's about choosing not to numb yourself anymore. God, it's about taking that one step, however clumsy or awkward, toward life again. So let me ask you, what's one small thing you've been putting off because you think it's too late? Oh, because maybe, just maybe, that small thing could lead you back to something beautiful. You know, I used to think that healing had to look like some big, dramatic moment, like fireworks going off, or a sudden breakthrough that changes everything. But that's not how it happened for me. It was slower, quieter. After a few months of showing up to that yoga class, and a few afternoon walks with Tom, something subtle started to shift. I wasn't crying myself to sleep anymore. I wasn't waking up with that heavy knot in my chest. I actually began sleeping through the night. I started feeling clearer in my head, like the fog was finally lifting. And this one surprised me, dash. I started waking up with something to look forward to. Just little things. A class, a new recipe to try, a book to finish. One day, I found an old photo tucked in the back of a drawer. Me and my best friend from college, laughing on a road trip we took in 79. And that was reprinted. Something in me said, why not? So I sat down and wrote him a letter. A real letter, pen on paper. No expectations. I told him what had happened, that I missed our old talks, that I hoped he was well. A week later, I got a reply. He wrote back, warm, surprised, and grateful. And just like that, a thread from the past came alive again. That little reconnection gave me courage to take another step. But eventually, I found myself telling my story, and strangely, hearing myself say it out loud. It helped me breathe again. I met people who'd lost more than I had, and some who found unexpected joy in the middle of their grief. One man, Michael, 72, told us how a dream nudged him to start writing a memoir. Not for anyone else, not to get published, but to better understand his own heart. It helped me feel less scattered, he said, like I was piecing my life back together with each word. And I get that now. Healing doesn't always come in big waves. Sometimes it's in the letter you send, the story you share, the smile you exchange with someone who gets it. So, if you're watching this and wondering, will I ever feel whole again? Maybe just start with one small opening. One step toward someone, toward yourself. Because when you do, life, slowly, gently, starts opening back up. Looking back now, I realize something important. Something I wish I had understood earlier. You don't always need a life-shattering event to wake you up. Sometimes it's not a thunderstorm that turns your life around. It's a whisper, a quiet nudge, a song on the radio, a forgotten postcard, a letter sent after 20 years. Those little things, if you're paying attention, can become turning points. We often wait for some big sign to tell us it's time to change. We think it has to be dramatic, a job loss, a health scare, a breakdown. But maybe, just maybe, the real power lies in noticing the small things. The universe doesn't shout. It doesn't wave flashing signs in your face. It whispers. And the only way to hear it is to slow down. That's the biggest lesson I've learned. I used to say, why me? But now I think, maybe it's not that the universe chose me. Maybe I finally got quiet enough, still enough, to actually listen. And when I did, I realized I still had life to live, bash, people to meet, things to share, healing to do. You don't have to climb a mountain or write a best-selling book to begin again. Sometimes beginning again looks like joining a yoga class. Writing a letter. Telling your story. Saying yes, just once, to the possibility of something different. So, if you're watching this, Aylin, and you've been waiting for some kind of sign, maybe this is it. Maybe this video found you for a reason. Now I want to ask you something from the heart. Have you ever felt like the universe was trying to tell you something? A moment, a feeling, a coincidence that felt just too right to ignore. Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your story, because sometimes hearing each other's whispers is how we find our way back to ourselves. So if you're 60 or 65 or even 80, please hear me when I say this. It's not too late. It's not too late to feel something again. Not too late to laugh, to cry, to start a new chapter. Not too late to reconnect with a friend, to try something new, or to find peace in your own skin. Sometimes, all it takes is a sign, in the quiet courage to follow it. Oh, maybe it's a song that makes you pause. Maybe it's a stranger who says something you needed to hear. Or maybe it's a video like this one that gently taps you on the shoulder and says, "Hey, there's still time. I don't have all the answers. I'm just someone who got lost for a while and found a small way back." And if anything I've shared today has made you feel seen or a little less alone, then this whole journey was worth it. Before you go, I want to leave you with one question. What's one small thing you could do this week to feel a little more alive? Not for anyone else, just for you. If this story resonated with you, if it stirred something in your heart, I'd be so grateful if you gave it a like. Maybe even subscribe to the channel. It helps more than you know. And please, share your story in the comments. Have you ever felt like the universe was trying to reach you? Have you had a moment that changed everything, even in the smallest way? I read every single comment because I believe, truly, that when we share our stories, we don't just heal ourselves. We help light the way for someone else. Thanks for spending this time with me. Take care, and keep listening for the whispers.